This evening on The Rock Newman Show, a champion's story. Howard University student Zachyre Lane was on the dean's list and a track and field athlete. And then she was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, a form of blood cancer that attacks the immune system. Tonight, Zachyre joins us with her family to talk about all she endured to become a cancer survivor. That's coming up right now on The Rock Newman Show. Welcome to The Rock Newman Show from the campus of historic Howard University, located right here in the nation's capital. I'm Rock Newman, and it is my desire to inspire you with personal stories of extraordinary achievement. When Zachyre Lane was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, it seemed like her world had come to an end. She experienced months and months of medical treatment that included stem cell therapy. She lost all her hair and worried about maintaining her grades and her Howard University scholarship. But Zachyre has the heart of a champion, and with the love and support of her family, medical caregivers, and the Howard University community, she's now a cancer survivor. We're pleased to have Zachyre Lane and her family here to share their inspiring story. I'm not a preacher, but I'm going to say hallelujah. Thank you guys so much for joining us this evening. Let me start by sharing with my audience that I'm a bit of a softie and a sucker for a success story. For you see, each of my shows, I say, I hope to inspire you with stories of extraordinary achievement. We titled this story tonight, A Champion's Story. And we have sitting at this table absolutely a true bona fide champion. If she never wins another race, she and her family, we're so blessed that they have joined us this evening. And I want to start here. I have a letter that was sent to some caregivers at Children's Hospital. And I just want to read this part. It says, "We next experienced the intense chemo. I've come to learn that word means different things to different people. But when they said the experience would be intense, none of us were prepared. To watch your baby's heart rate and blood pressure soar to numbers failing just shy of cardiac arrest, while you stand at the foot of her bed with 4 nurses holding her down at the top of the bed, and all you can say is, 'Mommy is here,' while rubbing her feet." So I'm going to try not to cry, but that was a powerful something when I read it, and I knew from there that this was a story that we wanted to tell on the Rock Newman Show. So again, let me say to each of you, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy, I think I will go to you, and I see you tearing up, Mom. I see you tearing up. So you write this. Can you further describe what it was you were feeling at that moment?
Okay, so Zachyre had been through Hodgkin's lymphoma 3 years ago. And it was 18 months after my mother had passed. And for the first time, I felt like now I have to be an adult. My mother had always been there whenever there was any difficulty, any situation that you couldn't deal with, my mother was there. But when she experienced cancer 3 years ago, my mother wasn't there. I had to be an adult. We went through 16 chemotherapy treatments, and I felt like I was strong for Zachyre. As a matter of fact, I did not shed a tear until the day we found out she went into remission. This time, it was totally different. So in September of last year, when Zachyre called to tell me that she found another lump, I'm initially just dismissing it because this can't be happening again.
Yes.
And but sure enough, it was happening again. The first time it was stage 2. This time it was even more severe. It was stage 4.
Oh.
So it was heartbreaking, to say the least. The story that I write about there, it comes after a period of, so she had gone through chemotherapy treatments at Children's National, and she was a sophomore at the time at Howard University. And after that, she had to go through a stem cell treatment, but we did that at Duke University in Durham.
Closer to your home.
In our home, yes. And the day that she started the stem cell treatment, they had told us it was going to be 6 days of chemotherapy. It was going to be very intense, but like I said there, we just were not prepared. The first chemotherapy treatment that she received, it was 2 hours. And she'd gotten through the first hour and 15 minutes without incident. And all of us were in the room with her. And, you know, she was even talking and smiling and laughing and feeling okay. It was like, you know, we've gotten through this. The last 45 minutes, the way she described it later, it felt like something was pulling her skin from the inside out. And the nurses were experienced because they had been through this type of chemotherapy before. So it was 4 nurses in the room. They were all trying to hold her down, trying to comfort her. There was no space for me at the top of the bed. So I'm just standing at the foot of the bed. And Zachyre says in a little small voice, she says, "Mommy, can you make it stop?" And I couldn't make it stop. And I'm just rubbing her feet. And I look at Zion. Zion's standing there like a statue. I look at my husband, he's tearing up. But she got through the 45 minutes. And immediately, once the chemotherapy stopped, her heart rate just dropped. And then they had to give her fluids to get her blood pressure back up again. So it was very traumatic, to say the least. And I'm just glad that we've gotten through that.
Zachyre, we were told, we're going to watch a video in just a moment, but we were told that you came to the doctor, you went to the doctor sort of independently on your own. What was it that prompted you to do that?
Well, when I first found the lump, it was on the opposite side of where I found the lump back in 2015. So when I first found it, I wasn't really trying to go to the hospital because I had so many other things going on at school. I was running track. I'm in an organization on campus, and I have classes and things. So I wasn't really trying to go, but my mother kept telling me to go. And after I saw that the lump wasn't going away, it was actually getting bigger, I said it's time for me to go because I don't know what this is, and I was really hoping that it wasn't a reoccurrence of what happened the last time.
We have a video that we want to show with the caregivers that have really played a role in your life, and I think you guys have a great amount of appreciation. Let's take a look. About a year ago, I got a call from a former student of mine here at Howard University who became a friend. He and his family were distressed due to a very serious medical condition with their daughter. I called Dr. Kurt Newman at Children's National Hospital, and he introduced me to the 2 angels that sit with us this evening, Dr. Shauna Jacobs and Ms. Susan French. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us here.
So Dr. Jacobs, his daughter, Fleno's daughter, Zachyre, had Hodgkin's lymphoma. Can we please start with you describing and explaining what Hodgkin's lymphoma is and its seriousness?
Sure. So there are 2 kinds of lymphoma that people can experience: Hodgkin's lymphoma and, very creatively named, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Both are about equally common in teenagers and young adults, and both require very intensive therapies to be able to get rid of it. Either of them without treatment would be fatal. So they are very, very serious conditions. Hodgkin's lymphoma tends to have 2 peaks of when it presents. So this kind of adolescent to young adult age that Zachyre fell into, and then again in older adults over the age of 55. At Children's, obviously, we primarily take care of the first peak. Hodgkin's lymphoma is one of the more common types of cancers that we see in this population and requires very intensive therapy to get it into remission. Fortunately, in most cases, the therapies are successful, and in close to 90% of patients, we're able to cure them just with their upfront therapies. Unfortunately, in some patients, it does come back again, and in those patients, we need to use even more intensive kinds of chemotherapy, including something called an autologous transplant, which means that we take the cells out of the patient, we give them really intensive therapies, and then we give those cells back to them. And those therapies tend to be much harder to get through and are not necessarily as successful as the upfront therapies.
So a very serious matter. Susan French, the family has referred to you as the navigator. There are so many things that when you deal with an extreme and difficult medical situation like the Lane family was dealing with, where you need someone to help navigate. And they have indeed referred to you as the master navigator. Can you share, your experience with them and what role you played in this process?
Well, I work with the medical team, and my role is, my title's actually nurse navigator. And I work with our CEO office and our senior leadership. And so when you called Dr. Newman as the CEO and asked, is there someone that can help the family? What Dr. Newman does is he reaches out to me, and then I work with the family and other families as a liaison to coordinate care and communication with the team. So I work with the team, and so at that point, and I knew that Zachyre was coming to see Dr. Jacobs. I worked with her. I helped the families, like setting up their appointments, getting them to the clinic the first time. I reached out to the family before they got there. We got her medical records, coordinating all the behind the scenes that happens before Zachyre actually gets there. A lot of conversations with the family, with the mother, father, getting to know them. Right. And of course, the fact that they were in North Carolina and she was getting treatment here at Children's National, they were worried and who was going to help take care of their daughter. And so just setting up that relationship of trust with them and just knowing that I was going to be there for Zachyre for all the things the team couldn't help with, I was going to help them with that too. So when she first came to Children's National, I met her and then walked her up to the clinic, helped her to get a badge, helped with all the things that when you're diagnosed with an illness, it's difficult enough to deal with that, but to get all the logistics of getting to the hospital, getting to the right clinic, getting the follow-up appointments with the doctors, scheduling on other things, that's what I help with.
So let me stay with you for a moment here and ask you, for those individuals who are out there in the community who don't have someone that can call the CEO of the hospital and to make things happen, help make things happen, what is your best advice to them when they come upon a difficulty like this? What is it they should say? What is it they should do? How should they behave when they interact with a medical institution like Children's?
Well, luckily we have a lot of support set up at Children's National, so I not only work with the medical team, but we also have a patient experience team, and what they do is they reach out to families and help them. We have a great social work team, we have great case management teams, so it's not just Dr. Jacobs, it's a whole team of people that work together, and especially in our oncology hematology unit, they are such a wonderful, well-greased wheel. They really hardly even need a nurse navigator in their clinic because they any child that comes into their clinic gets the same care that Zachyre got. I just happened to get involved because her family was in North Carolina. They needed those logistics, so when they would come up here, I would help them if they needed to get a place to stay. Luckily, they have a lot of family in DC and Maryland. But to answer your question of what do families do that can't call the CEO is to work with their provider, whoever is the diagnosing physician or nurse practitioner, and work with them and have them make a call for them. A lot of the referrals that I get are actually pediatricians in the community that happen to know that I'm there because they did their training at Children's National. So they'll make a call to the hospital. It doesn't go to Dr. Newman, but it will come to either our team, to the Dr. Dome, who's the head of the oncology team, or to me or someone else. But to really work with your primary care provider, who's the one who diagnosed your condition or is sending you to Children's Hospital, because they're a huge advocate for you as well. And then once you get there, we have these supports in place.
Okay. Dr. Jacobs, I have a letter here that Zachyre's mother wrote about the intensity when she was ended up at Duke University and the treatment that she was going through, stem cell and the rest. And they talked about it. It absolutely floored me when I read it about how intense it was. Can you please share with us, your experience? Because you said before there are, when it comes back, there's some very intense treatment. So what does one have to anticipate when they go through this process? What should they be prepared for?
So Zachyre had actually been treated for her Hodgkin's initially at Duke when she was 16. And she got excellent treatment. The kind of treatment that I described is successful in close to 90% of patients.
Right.
Unfortunately, here she was several years later, and the cancer had come back again.
Yes.
And we know that when the cancer comes back and someone had gotten what we consider state-of-the-art, excellent treatments, if it came back despite that, it is now extremely aggressive.
Yeah.
And so the only way to combat it is in a way with something very, very aggressive. And so that's why we turn to stem cell transplant, because we really see that as our most aggressive option
Yes.
for fighting different kinds of leukemias and lymphomas.
Right.
And so basically what it entails is completely wiping out the bone marrow of the person.
Yeah.
And that requires a lot of really intensive therapies.
Yeah.
And so it can be very, very challenging, and the types of symptoms and experiences that Zachyre's mother described is very similar to the types of experiences that we see with children who are treated at Children's National. It can be very challenging to go through.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I do this job is because children are amazing, and
Yeah.
it's incredible how strong they can be and how endurant they can be.
Yeah.
And the types of things that if I had to endure this, I'm not sure that I could.
Yeah.
And kids and young adults are really so inspiring because they go through it and they just have an incredible fight and an incredible will.
I need to get an observation and reflection from both of you. We're titling this because she is a student athlete here at Howard University, and she has endured and she has overcome. We're titling this A Champion's Story. If each of you could give me a 20, 30-second reflection of your personal experience and observation of Zachyre the champion. Susan?
Well, it's interesting because I was working with her mom and her dad and also working with Zachyre, and as a parent and also having a 19-year-old in college away from here, I could really relate to what they were going through. And Zachyre was so determined, and she didn't want to be treated any differently than anybody else. She didn't want any special treatment. Her whole determination, when I met her the first time, she's like, let's get this done.
Yeah.
And she didn't want any sympathy. She wanted to do the treatment. She just said, we're going to get through this. I'm not leaving school. I'm going to stay with my class. I'm going to get this done over my break.
Yeah.
I'm going to take classes, and I'm going to be a sophomore starting in September, and that's what she has done.
A true champion.
A true champion.
Dr. Jacobs, your reflection?
So I first met Zachyre when she came to me actually entirely on her own. She had felt this lymph node, and she knew that it was something concerning, and so she made her own appointment, and she came to see me entirely by herself. I shared my concern with her, and I told her that I also was very worried that the cancer was back. She handled it in an incredibly mature way. I was relieved, however, that when I called her to discuss the results of the biopsy, that her mother was there to support her, and I think it really reflected what it is like to be a young adult, that you are on the one hand independent, on the other hand still dependent on your parents. And they really did make a wonderful team. Zachyre is an amazing young woman, and she showed incredible fortitude, strength. She is a very stubborn and determined young woman.
Yes.
And I think that
Served
is
her well.
part of what has allowed her to be very successful.
If she never wins another race, she's a champion. Thank you
sure
so much
is.
for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Rock.
If she never wins another race, she is the champion. Zion, is your sister stubborn? Your big sister?
100% yes.
Now, is there going to be a debate later about
There's a
that?
difference between stubborn and, persistent.
We're both stubborn. Hers is just in a different way.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
So, illnesses like this always go beyond just the person that is ill. It affects a family. As a little sister, how has this affected you?
Well, so I'm a senior this year, so I was like,
Senior in high school.
yes, a senior in high school. So I was really looking forward to living life, like seizing all these opportunities before I went off to college. And then when I found out that it was back, it was just like, it was disappointing.
It's okay.
Disappointing that your big sister was enduring this again, but also it was taking away from some of your life.
Yeah, I agree with that. It just like, it was always on my mind, obviously. So like, while I was off being a senior, my mind was like somewhere else. But like, I also tried to be as optimistic as possible because I was like, if she's done it before, she can do it again. So it definitely like strengthened my belief in like things going well and my belief in God that He'll take care of us.
Flino, let me come to you as the dad. Men like to fix things.
Yes.
If something is wrong with something that we love or someone that we love, our thought is to fix it. And you come up as a dad with the ultimate challenge of your daughter's health, and you can't fix that. How did that make you feel?
Rock, I tell you, as a parent, you know, as a father, you want to provide for your children, make their lives better. Like you say, fix it when they have a problem, remove that obstacle. And I felt helpless. You know, when we went through it the first time, we were kind of all in shock and just kind of went through step by step and know that that was an end. Coming back again, you know, when things were going so well in our lives and with Zachyre's life, I just didn't know what to do. You know, it shook my faith somewhat. You know, I questioned God. I went and I think I talked to you a little bit about, you know, how I should deal with this, and some of my spiritual friends and my pastor. And, you know, they said it's okay to question God, you know, but He does have a plan and that He will see you through this. So you have to take the little victories along the way, be persistent, you know, trust. You know, I think my girls, the ladies in my house, are probably stronger than I am, you know, because I just couldn't understand why we had to go through this again.
Right.
So it was really dramatic.
Yeah. And so, Zachyre, you first of all, let's go back to the first time you experienced this. Can you share sort of your personal thoughts, the personal thoughts that you had when you first experienced this? Was it like real frightening from the beginning? Were you in part in denial? Where was your head at that time? You were 16.
Yeah, I was 16, and I was actually supposed to go to Florida to run for my 4x1 team for the Junior Olympics in high school. And I wasn't able to go because I was diagnosed. And I wasn't really concerned about me having cancer. I wasn't really worried about my health, to be honest. I was really worried about, like, am I going to be able to run track? Am I going to be able to go to school type of thing?
You're such an athlete.
I mean, I wouldn't say I was sad when they told me, because God kind of, before they told me, God told me in my head, like, I think you have cancer. So I already had the thought in my mind, and I was like, okay, well, let's move on from that. What's the next step, type of thing. I wasn't really concerned about, I wasn't gonna just sit and be sad about it. I was gonna just try and figure out what to do next.
Okay, so you go through that process, you go through chemo, you're fully in remission, and you go on with your life. So let me ask you this. What made you choose Howard University?
Well, one, my dad went to Howard, so that was a big deal. And I wanted to run track here. I really wanted to run track here. And just when we came here to visit and came here for homecoming, I just felt already at home. Like, I didn't feel like I had to be someone different. So I like that.
You obviously are someone that is passionate about your athleticism and running track. We have a couple of comments from your coach that we're going to take a look at.
Zachyre Lane, she's one of the most dedicated individuals we have on the team. Her leadership is second to none. She was a rock for us in the 4x1 relay. She was a void that we had to fill there this year. didn't know who we were going to go with, and, you know, still avoid to this day. When we learned about Zach's illness, you know, we really rallied around her. She had come by the office and let me know, you know, that after a visit with the doctor, and it was just, it was really rough. They've been through this as a family already once before, and then when you feel like everything's cleared up, and then, you know, you have it strike again. But like I said, Zach's a resilient fighter. You know, she's going to beat this. Athletics, track and field in particular, and certain events, say the hurdles, it's all about overcoming obstacles. Zach's a sprinter, you know, but sprinting is a series of falls and recoveries. So, you know, you fall, you recover, you know, all the way down the track. So that's, you know, what's going on now. She fell down once. She got back up and, you know, earned a scholarship here to Howard to run track and field. She kind of stumbled again now, and but she'll still be back here and ready to fight again for the next 3 seasons for us.
What does running track do for you, and what does it mean to you?
I've been running track since the 4th grade.
Okay.
So I feel like it was just, well, at first it was just something to do to keep me active, and because my mother ran track, I decided I would run track as well. But I would say since I've been running track, it's just allowed me to meet new people, like get new friends outside of school. But I've also just, it's like kind of relaxing to do, actually, just to get away from like classes and things like that. It's like a stress reliever.
Being in the structure of the university system, how does that help you with your discipline?
Just being a student athlete in general, it's really difficult to like try and balance like classes, so your social life and track. So I've definitely learned how to time manage. Just focus on that.
So you said your mom won track. You know, I didn't really think it was you got your speed from Flea, because when he was student here at Howard University, there's never been a human being on this planet that has ever been cooler than Flea. And always real debonair, so he couldn't move but so fast because he always had to keep his clothes in place.
And a jacket.
That's what I remember. That's what I remember of Flea. Kathy, going back to the first time Zachyre was diagnosed, how did you feel?
I was shocked. I was sad. So I felt Zachyre, in my mind, Zachyre's always been a very sensitive child. And I felt between the two, Zachyre was sensitive, Zion was the strong one. And getting a diagnosis like this, I viewed Zachyre as like a little delicate flower. And I felt like, as a matter of fact, Flea and I were standing in the hallway, you know, who's gonna tell her, how are we gonna tell her that she has cancer? And I just imagined like her little petals just folding up when she heard this diagnosis. Zachyre surprised us all. She just blossomed. Her petals bloomed. She showed such strength, such courage, perseverance, resilience. I mean, all of those words, Zachyre surprised us all. She came through it, and just like she said, it was like, so what's next? And we put the treatment plan, we reviewed the treatment plan with the doctors. We went through it step by step, and she just went through it like a champion. She really did.
Because you hear so much about, when you hear about cancer, you hear about chemo, and that you obviously had to take chemo.
Yes.
Did you have those bouts of being just like very, very sick after the chemo? Did you experience that or no?
Yes.
Yes, she did lots of nausea, lots of vomiting. More so the first time she had it than this last time. But it was a different chemotherapy regimen. But it was going back to the first time. Zachyre was more disappointed when she lost her hair.
I was more concerned about that.
Than hearing she had cancer. It was like, we told her she had cancer. She was like, what's next? But the night that she lost her hair, I think she cried for about an hour.
And Zachyre, can you explain that? What happened?
So, do you want me to start from when I was first diagnosed?
Yeah, I'm talking about, you know, like when you say you get to that point where you lost your hair. I don't know if that's after 2 treatments or 6, but explain that moment that caused that kind of sadness.
Okay, so they told me that my hair, because I always ask them, every time I go to the hospital, I'm always asking, so when is my hair supposed to fall out? And they told me that it would fall out after a couple of treatments. and it came out after I had my first treatment. So I was really surprised. I was actually at a football game with my friends, and I scratched my head, and I have hair in my hands, and I didn't want to react in front of them because I didn't want to cause a scene. So I just waited till I got home, and I took my hat off, and I just started scratching, and all my hair was on the floor. And I never seen a cancer patient when they lost their hair, like right after they lost their hair. So when I looked in the mirror, I just broke down because I knew that's not what I wanted to look like.
Zion, were you there that night?
I was there.
We were all there.
Share your thoughts.
I felt bad for her just because she loves her hair. She's always loved her hair. But like, also she looked good bald, so she was fine. But she was really sad about it.
And that's one of the things with cancer, you know, how Zachyre felt physically when she was first diagnosed. She was okay, but the chemo and the medicine to treat it makes you sicker than how you feel with the cancer. You know, and so like this last time, she came out of remission in December, and now we were faced with, do we do the stem cell, which has even more intense chemo? I think I called you. I said, well, Rock, she's in remission. Do we go back to school now and take that chance on whether it comes back or not, 50-50, or do we increase our odds and go through this stem cell, which is more dramatic, you know, more damaging to the body, to get her healed, to seal it off for coming back? And that's the real challenge, you know, in going through something like this.
So let me ask, and any of you take a stab on this, has it been described as why? Hereditary? Has there ever been anything given to you guys that you feel you can hold on to as to why this even came about?
I don't think there's any rhyme or reason or any scientific, you know, diagnosis to say why this occurred for Zachyre. I really don't think it has been explained to us that way. You know, we think this is something that God has allowed to happen to Zachyre to make our family stronger, to help other people. I mean, the scores and hundreds of people that have rallied behind us, and I need to stop and thank you. I mean, I sent a note to the president of the university and copied you, and the first thing you said was, "Flea, call me." And I mean, that Howard family, you know, that we hadn't seen each other a while, but we've known each other for 40 years, and the way that you jumped in and helped us, you know, seeing people help us and just support us has been a humbling experience. So we take this and we move forward. We take the little victories along the way. You know, I feel like Zachyre's life is going to be blessed more than she was before. You know, when she had cancer the first time, she came out, she ran faster. She finished number 3 in the state, number 100, number 5 in the 200, and before that, she wasn't that good.
Okay.
You know?
She was okay.
Well, she wasn't in the top of the state. You know, she was a competitive runner. So we're looking for something special out of this, and how we can impact lives, and how she can really do something special with her life.
So, Kathy, what has been said now that you've gone through this process? I think you used the word, take this very aggressive stem cell treatment and kind of seal it off. What has been sort of the diagnosis now that, hey, it's done, we've got it, you don't expect it again? Is that always a prospect?
Well, so when we were going through the debate of whether or not we would do the stem cell transplant, we talked with Dr. Sung, who's at Duke University Medical Center, and he was just telling us the odds. If we don't go through it, it was a 75% chance that the cancer could come back. If we do go through it, the odds were much less. So we felt we would take the risk, although we knew that the stem cell transplant would be intense, very challenging. We felt that we would give Zachyre her best chance for success. So it's still not a 100% guarantee that she won't have Hodgkin's lymphoma again, but we feel like we've given her her best chance at not having that happen.
And Zachyre, along the way with this significant illness, again, your focus has been, can I finish my classes? Can I continue to carry my load?
Be with my friends.
Live my life with some of my friends. The whole piece about wanting to stay current with your studies, what drives that?
I just didn't want to be going to the hospital and then not doing anything else with my day. I mean, I have, you know, I just wanted to keep my mind off of everything that was going on. So I decided to continue with my classes, and I was almost done anyway. So I was like, let me just finish, finish this semester, do well this semester, and just see what happens next.
Do you remember anything about the moment that your mother writes about here that was so just gut-wrenching?
I actually, when they talk about it, I don't remember the actual, what actually was happening. All I remember was just scratching over and over and over again, just scratching. I don't remember some of the stuff though.
Zion, as little sister, you're there observing this sort of almost life and death moment for your big sister. What do you remember?
I remember standing there and I was like, okay, Zion, keep it together, because these two were a mess. So I was trying to be the strong one. And then I remember, I knew it was like a big deal, but I didn't think it was that big of a deal. So I said, oh, Zachyre will get over this like she's gotten over everything else.
Yeah.
So then I remember leaving that day because I had something to do after we left the hospital, maybe like choir rehearsal or something. And I remember how quiet Daddy was because he just I guess he didn't like seeing that. But I just tried to stay strong through the whole thing because I was like, oh, Zachyre's gonna get over this. Plus, going into the transplant, I was kind of thinking worst case scenario anyway. So then to get through that, it was almost like I was expecting it.
Let me stop you there. When you say you were thinking worst case scenario anyway, what does that mean?
Well, they kept telling her before she decided to do it, they were like, it's gonna be a rough time. So in my mind, I already decided it was going to be a rough time, but she just had to get through it like she has everything else. So when that happened, I was like, this is a rough time.
When you said you were thinking the worst anyway, you had never given in to that you might lose your sister in this process.
I just thought she'd get through it. I knew it was going to be hard for her to get through it, but I just assumed that it would be really rough, but she pushed through it anyway.
What she has gone through, what has that taught you?
It's taught me to have faith, obviously, and to just trust in the process and trust that God's putting us through this for a reason. And it's also taught me to be more optimistic, like I said before, and just have a better outlook for how things are gonna go, and to just persevere, I guess. Because my problems didn't, after seeing her go through parts of her stem cell transplant, my friend problems or my issues at school, my bad grades, they didn't seem, my one bad grade, they didn't seem as bad anymore after seeing that.
What I'd like for both of you to talk about what it has meant for you as sisters. Is it something that has brought you closer? It would not be a leap that, again, this happening in your senior year, and the focus having to be on the big sister, taking away from your time. What has it meant to you guys' relationship?
I feel that, I didn't want to come home for the stem cell transplant at all. I wanted to be at school with my friends.
Yeah.
But since I had to come home, it's just, I've been spending a lot of time with Zion. I got to pick her up from school. And just little moments like that, I feel like it's definitely brought us closer. I've gotten to see just what kind of woman she grew up to be. And it's just, I don't know, makes you feel good. Makes me feel that I've done the right thing. Set a good example.
I agree. I like having her home with me, even though she wants to go back to school. Just because, it's like another person in the house again, since she had been gone for a year or two. And also, I love having her pick me up from school, and we get our nails done sometimes. So it's back to where before she left. But even when she was at school, and I first found out that it came back, we were still fine. We were still joking around and stuff.
We just didn't really talk about it.
Yeah.
And so this is the athlete in the family, and you are the performing artist in the family.
Yes.
And I don't mean to hit you with something by surprise, but I understand that you do a tune in a play that you've done now for quite some time. And what I'd like for you to do, without putting you too much on the spot, but then you really are on the spot, is if you would just share that with us. We're talking about a lot of heavy stuff here. Let's take us up a little bit.
Okay. There's a light in the darkness. Though the night is black as my skin, there's a light burning bright, showing me the way. But I know where I've been. There's a cry in the distance. It's a voice that comes from deep within. There's a cry asking why. I pray the answer's up ahead, 'cause I know where I've been. There's a road we've been traveling, lost so many on the way, but the riches will be plenty, worth the price we had to pay. There's a dream in the future, there's a struggle that we have yet to win, and there's pride in my heart, 'cause I know where I'm going, and I know where I've been.
What does singing that song mean to you?
It means a lot to me just because, like, I've gone to a majority white school for 4 years, so it's been nice to, like, sing a song about my people's story versus somebody else's. And then also it easily lines up with Zachyre's whole, like, journey and everything about, like, what we've been through and where we're heading.
So Zach, is that a reflection of your little sister as to how you see your little sister just kind of out there and being the one that's probably talks more than the others?
Yes. Always. That's how she is.
So, Flea, we've talked about the experience. We talked about, sort of the pain and the treatment and that sort of thing. For any family going through this, part of what it does is it sucks finances from you. It's just an unbelievable drain. So can you talk to us a little bit about how this kind of extraordinarily expensive journey is managed through insurances, and do you get support from places that we might not know of? Tell us, what's that like?
It's certainly a challenge financially. When you think of a stem cell, it's almost $500,000 to go through that. I work for a company that's a startup, and we have really great insurance where they cover about 80% of it. But 20% of $500,000 is still a lot of money.
That was $100,000.
And that's on top of what we went through with the first Hodgkin lymphoma treatment as well.
Right.
And in the beginning we were flying back and forth. Kathy would come up for a week for a chemo session, and so would I. When we connected with Susan French, she helped us, with that and connecting us with the program that would fly us back and forth and offer us housing, which we didn't need because my sister lives here. But it is certainly expensive. It has taken away some of the, Zion is now a senior. She's been accepted to Tulane's honors program, Spelman, Howard, University of Chapel Hill in North Carolina, and NYU. And so she's narrowed it down to Howard and NYU, and that has taken away from some of her college funds. So we, may have to make a decision based on how much money is offered on what school she's attending, when we would like to have her to have the option to go wherever she wants without money being an issue. So we've had to do some things. We're certainly are not taking, we used to make sure that we have a big vacation every year. We're not taking $10,000 vacations anymore. So we have to watch our pennies, but we are surviving. God has blessed us. People have been just great in supporting us. So we're making it. We're doing okay. I work for Cohesity, which is a startup, and Kathy has been over 35 years with IBM And so they have been very supportive and giving Kathy was off for 6 weeks, and they've allowed me time to do what I need to do in order to help manage the situation.
Kathy, with your experience with IBM, what is it, what did you have to get from them? How did they support you?
When I realized that Zachyre was going to be home and I would need to be here in Durham, having treatment in Durham, and I needed to be there with her, I just talked to my manager about it. I printed out a schedule showing when I would be in the office, when I would be out, and my management team was just so supportive. My coworkers, my peer managers, they were very supportive. I mean, they would pray with me, send me inspirational messages, and they would always say, if you need anything, just let us know. I mean, but they were just there for me. Even when I returned to work at the beginning of March, they were still there. Like, if you need anything, let us know. We're continuing to pray for Zachyre, because even though the stem cell transplant was complete and she was doing better, she was going through the process of rebuilding her immune system, I did return to work, but Zachyre still had a ways to go, and she still does now. So that first 90 days is the most critical. She has a compromised immune system. It's getting stronger, but she's not there yet.
So to each of you, to each of the parents, are there, again, folks looking in, contemplating this thing here, they might already be faced with it. Are there any resources typically outside of what your insurances are that people can look for in a situation like this with, you know, just sort of disaster medical issues?
Sure, the Lymphoma Society, you know, helps families in need, and you can certainly apply for help financially from that as well. And I think St. Baldrick's, which we all know about in terms of helping cancer with kids, you know, for younger kids, those are the type of organizations where you can get in contact with and apply for financial help that way.
So, Zachyre, let me come squarely back here to you now. So, what are your dreams, and what are your plans?
Okay, so my dream is to actually own my own physical therapy clinic in Miami, Florida, for athletes. And my plans are to graduate from Howard and then go to school in Miami, hopefully University of Miami, and get my master's in physical therapy, and maybe work with a few teams down there while I start to build up my business.
And in terms of healing yourself now, what are you doing? Give us the status where you are now. I remember talking to your dad, and I was blown away. It was sometime after this incident that your mom wrote about, but I think he said this was maybe a week or 2 weeks or something. Well, Zach is doing 3 minutes on the treadmill now. So where are you, and do you plan to progress towards coming back and running track?
So yes, I actually start working out next week. I have been doing some things at home, but I start working out with my coach next week. I've been doing like the bike, and I've been walking. They told me to walk a mile a day in the hospital just to keep me moving. I've changed my eating habits. I drink more water now. Just realizing that you know, you need to be more healthy. Realizing that not every place is clean, type of thing. Maybe not using silverware at a restaurant, maybe using plastic instead, things like that I've changed. But yes, I do plan to run track in the indoor season, and yeah.
So let me ask you, if you could share, when looking in the mirror, you know, kind of all your life, your sister said, you know, you always loved your hair, but looking in the mirror and having a bald head. Tell us about that moment.
So the first time when I was diagnosed and I didn't have any hair, I was miserable the entire time. I was like, I need a wig. The next day, I went and got a wig. But I wasn't really happy with myself. I didn't like how I looked. I didn't have any eyebrows. I didn't have any eyelashes. I just felt really incomplete, almost. I would say the second time when I was diagnosed, I was tough enough to shave my own head at school. My parents weren't even here. Nobody was in the room except me and my friend, and I shaved my head. I wasn't really crying or anything. Even when I started pulling out my hair, I wasn't really crying. I said, okay, you know, you just got to get through it. It'll grow back the same way it did the first time. I still like to wear wigs and things like that, but everyone keeps telling me how nice I look without them. So, I mean, I don't think of myself as anything less than. I still look pretty with or without it.
When you said you shaved your hair, did that give you any sense of being liberated?
Actually, yes, it did. I just felt like, one, I didn't have to do my hair anymore. I could just, you know, put on a wig and keep it going. But I felt like, okay, this is the beginning of another journey. You know, you just gotta fight through this one the same way you fought through the last one, and you'll be okay.
Zion, talk to me, because this is a family affair. This is very, very much a family affair. So what are your immediate plans? And I hear that you've been accepted to many schools because you're a superstar. We are just going to claim Howard University for you. I mean, you may or may not know that, but that's what we're doing. We claim it Howard for you. Talk to me about, you just blew us away here. If this was America's Got Talent or anything else, people would be standing up and giving you tens or whatever it might be. But talk to us about your dreams.
So once I graduate, I still haven't decided where I'm going yet, but wherever I end up, I want to double major in communications and global studies, and then I want to minor in musical theater to keep that in my life, basically, yes.
And what does your artistry, is that kind of, you know, because I get the impression, and it's been whispered that, you know, that's something that you love, that you're really passionate about. So is that something, you know, you hear folks saying sometimes, you know, it gives me life. Does that give you life?
I just enjoy it because, I mean, for one thing, I like the spotlight to be on me sometimes.
You like the spotlight to be on you. You say it loud. It's okay.
But I just like the idea of like the transformation happening and then like going back to your normal self. Like starting a show off and like you're nervous and stuff, but then as soon as I get in front of an audience, it's like a switch is flipped. And then when the show's over, it's like, okay, back to normal. I just like that variety, kind of.
So as a family, Flea, if I could start with you. We've got about 5 minutes left. What has this is a tough something to deal with. I know you touched on it before, but I'd like to ask you, sort of as the man of the house, you know, what does this really meant to you, and what do you think it's meant to your family, for better or for worse?
I think it has strengthened our faith, you know, in God. He's challenged us with this, but he put people in place like yourself and Dr. Newman and Susan French and the people at Duke to help us to get through this. I look at all the people who have come out and helped us, you know, in encouraging us as well. And I think that, you know, life is not to be taken for granted, and your health is not to be taken for granted, because it can change on a dime, you know. So you really need to appreciate each and every day, you know, appreciate those who you love, your friends, and just try to do something purposeful with your life in order to make the world better.
Kathy?
So I agree with Flea that it definitely, there were times where my faith was tested, but as a result, my faith has grown stronger. What it really felt like to me was the village coming together to make us all whole, to keep us all whole. You ask about my coworkers, the people at IBM, the people at Flea's job, people from our church, friends. There are these group of moms that I've known since Zachyre and Zion were in pre-K, and we still get together now. I mean, it's just been so many people coming together to support us, the people at our church, and and family members, the soul food gang. Yeah, our family members, and I mean, just the support that we've gotten from so many people is what has helped make us whole, keep us whole, and keep us moving forward.
So, Zach, we come back here and you make a triumphant return, because part of what you're doing, you're getting an award from your school, and two, you're getting the athletic inspiration award. What does that mean? What do those things mean to you?
It just shows that, you know, God has bigger plans for you after He gives you a challenge. After I finished the transplant, I just noticed that a whole lot of positive things started happening to me. My coach texted me about the award that I was receiving. I'm in the CNOS Honor Society, still have a high GPA. Like, things are still good. Like, things are still going the way they're supposed to. So it just shows that God will bless you after you finish what He's asked you to do.
Folks, this is a very special evening. I hope that you have enjoyed and appreciated what's been presented this evening, because I think that if we looked in a dictionary and saw the word inspiration, this champion right here's photo would be there, and the rest of her families would be there with her. Thank you so much for joining us. That wraps us for this evening. For more information on this program or any other program produced by WHUT, go to WHUT.org. Thanks for tuning in, and may God bless you.
This program was produced by WHUT, Howard University Television, and made possible by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.